Let me first start off by asking a question. What if starting today, your annual salary was reduced by 20%? You wouldn't be happy, right? I know personally I would be very upset. 20% is a large percentage of your salary, and of course has a big impact on your lives. Hello everyone, my name is Jennifer Bowers, and I would like to take a few minutes of your time to discuss my proposal for a global project communication plan. So let's first begin by reviewing the overview of my presentation. I will briefly discuss what my presentation is about, provide an introduction. We will go over the background details and explain my research methods. Then we will spend a few extra minutes reviewing the details of the communication plan matrix in more depth. Lastly, we will end with a short conclusion. So I work for Bayer. I work for a global organization. We have a regional headquarters in New Jersey, a corporate headquarters in Switzerland, and a local manufacturing plant in Myerstown, Pennsylvania, which is where I work. So you might be wondering, what is the downside of a global company? Global organizations often have many barriers which lead to ineffective communication. There's constant change in technology. There's different perceptions. Diversity, language, cultural norms are all common in global organizations. But these are just a few examples of the barriers. On average, within my company, there is approximately 56 active global projects, and 20% are not completed on time due to ineffective communication. Team members often report a lack of understanding about project length, or project assigned tasks, or other critical details that are required. So let's next move on to the research method. I conducted 3 interviews, 1 in person and 2 which were over the phone. Interviews were selected based on overall global project experiences, tenure with the organization, and geographic location. By conducting an interview with a representative from all 3 different locations, so I did my phone call in the US, or I did my interview in the US, and I did phone calls in New Jersey and Switzerland, I was able to get a better understanding of the common barriers that we struggled with as a whole, as a global organization. Not just one struggle by one site, but everything together. So there is a high level of credibility and a proven track record with my selected representatives. In addition, I also have a high level of experience working on global projects for more than 10 years. I've been in my position for more than a decade, and day in and day out, I do the same thing. My main responsibility is global projects. So I kind of learned what works, what doesn't work, and I see a lot of different things. So I have a lot of experience when it comes to global projects. So now I'd like to start to talk about in more detail, in more depth, the communication plan matrix. So this matrix will outline the specific strategic details to eliminate these barriers leading to ineffective communication. So I don't want to waste your valuable time by reviewing every micro detail of this plan in this presentation, but instead what I'll do is I will provide a link to the matrix in my VoiceThread comments so that you may review the entire plan in the full depth after my presentation if you desire to do so. So this matrix will outline responsibilities, any costs, any obstacles that might be in the way, training requirements, and of course it will also cover the implementation strategy and timeline. So instead, what I want to do today, I'd just like to briefly look at and discuss each problem or the barrier and the recommended solution. So based off of my interview and my research methods, I was able to identify 6 common barriers that we struggle as a whole, as a global organization. The first one was global and site goals were misaligned. Diversity. There was different project management software and different project management styles. There is a lack of resource availability. And also there's a lot of competing priorities. So people didn't know what to focus on first. And what might be first to one person is different a priority to another person. So as far as solutions go, so if we look at global and site goals misaligned, the matrix identifies that global and site leadership should be mandated to discuss and align on goals in the beginning of the new year. So every year in January, they sit down and they have to agree to what the goals will be as a global organization. Not just what the goal is for a local site, but as a whole. So then the local site managers would then be responsible to communicate these goals out to their manufacturing sites or their individual local sites. And these goals should also be aligned and linked to the employee performance reviews. So number 2, so inadequate diversity training and assessments. So by mandating diversity training and linking that diversity training to performance evaluations for all employees, that will help to increase the knowledge of diversity and how we overcome that barrier. Managers should also be responsible to discuss any current diversity issues during performance evaluations. So a lot of times we'll see a diversity issue, but we won't talk about it because it's uncomfortable. But we have to make that more structured. We have to mandate it. If we see something, it should be discussed during employee performance reviews. So number 3, so different timeline softwares. So as a global organization, Microsoft Project is the global preferred timeline software. So moving forward, we will only be using Microsoft Project. There will be no Prezi, no signups, no other type of software. We need to use a standardized software that we're all familiar with. And then number 4, we also noticed an inconsistent project management style. So we have a bunch of different project managers. They run a whole bunch of different projects. And we all do things differently. We're not the same. We have different styles. But to help overcome this barrier, we will develop a standardized timeline which captures all tasks, all responsibilities, all durations, everything that's important to a project will be captured in one standardized timeline. That way we're all focusing on the same timeline. It's familiar to us. And then in addition to that, we also need to ensure that our timelines are still flexible enough to address the uniqueness of our projects, because not every project is the same, so it has to be a little bit flexible. But the overall concept is one standardized timeline. So then number 5, lack of resource availability. So I think this is what's going to have a big impact, is the creation of a new project review board. So prior to any projects getting kicked off, this review board will be responsible to identify and look into whether or not we have resources. Can we support this project? Do we have the manpower? Do we have the supplies? Do we have everything that we need to implement successfully this project? So this will be the main responsibility of the review board, to look into resources. Are they available? And if they are, then we grant approval. And if they're not available, then maybe we deny, say, hey, we can't do this project right now. Or maybe we say we kick this project off in 6 months when we have resource availability. Now, in addition to identifying resources, this also leads us into number 6, competing priorities. So this review board will also, during that process, assign priorities to the projects. So when they're kicking off a new project, we'll assign priority number 1, 2, or 3, whatever it may be, to each project. That way, when we're working on different projects as colleagues, we know which one's the most important top priority project. And it'll be the same across the board. So as a global company, it will all be the same. We'll all have that same priority as a global organization. So hopefully by implementing those 6 steps, will help to eliminate some of these barriers leading to this ineffective communication. So to conclude, the matrix will outline the steps that we just talked about briefly on how to eliminate these communication barriers. And the goal would be to improve our completion of projects successfully by 15%. So I do realize this is not 100% project completion successfully, because I don't think that's realistic. Some projects you just will not be able to implement all the time. For example, some of our projects are tied to FDA approvals. So if the FDA comes back and says, hey, no, you can't do that, I mean, the project is done. You can't successfully complete something if you don't have FDA approval. So we don't want to strive for 100% project completion, but we do want to have a 15% improvement or 95% project completion on time. So when we're talking 20%, whether that be 20% in your salary or 20% of projects not being completed, it's a big number. 20% means a lot. So I think we just need to look at the importance of that and just try and find ways, follow the matrix to improve upon it. So if you have any questions, please do leave a comment in my voice thread. I will respond to it. If you have a question, I will definitely get back to you with an answer. But I'd like to thank you for taking the time to listen to my presentation, and I hope you have a good day. Thank you.